Good afternoon, and welcome to Making the Case with Dr. Akande. I'm Dr. Yemi Akande, and each week on the program, we'll bring you conversations with established and emerging leaders from a broad range of organizations as they offer their views on pressing local, national, and international issues that impact Northeast Ohio. Welcome to Making the Case with Yemi Akande. My guest today is architect and entrepreneur, Mr. Robert Madison, who was born in Cleveland. He graduated from Cleveland's East Tech High School with honors in mathematics and science in 1940, and he attended the School of Architecture at Howard University, but left to serve in World War II as a second lieutenant. Mr. Madison has had a stellar career and experience. He went on to receive a BA in architecture from Case Western University and an MA in architecture degree from Harvard University, and he didn't stop there. He kept on going and was a Fulbright scholar at l'École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, France, in urban design and pre-stressed concrete. But as I said before, he's done quite a lot. And one of his work that he's done that has always intrigued and certainly excited me is the fact that he's worked in Africa in designing the United States Embassy in Dakar, Senegal, and also the nuclear facility at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama and the Cleveland Brown Stadium. Welcome to my show.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to sit down and have a candid conversation around leadership and legacy with you. Sure. And as it is often the case when I start out the interviews, I generally ask people to tell me, what's your story? And how did you get to now? Certainly from your bio, you've had some vast experiences, certain turning points, tipping points. But how did it all start, Mr. Madison?
Well, I'd be happy to share what I can with you. Do you mind if I make one slight correction?
Oh, please do.
You said I graduated from Case Western Reserve University.
Yes.
I graduated from Western Reserve
University, went back in the day.
Yeah,
yes.
Because they had not federated with Case at that time. But
that's
small
true.
Item, but I feel very proud to be a Western Reserve
of course.
graduate.
Of course, indeed. Thank you for that correction.
But that's quite all right, and I'm delighted to share this with you. What is my story?
Yes.
I can only say that my parents, as most parents are really the generators of what one might become in life. And I think I know that it was my mother and my father who were very determined that I and my brothers would become professional men, and primarily in the field of architecture and engineering, because he was the first African-American to become a civil engineer in the state of Ohio, and I was the first African-American to become an architect in the state of Ohio some years later.
Yes.
But I think the story is very simple. My father came to Cleveland after, I was born in Cleveland.
Okay.
But then he left here because he couldn't get a job. They didn't hire black people for engineers back in those days. So we went through Selma University. He was teaching at Selma University in Selma, Alabama. Julian was born there. They went to Columbia, South Carolina, and taught at Benedict College. Stanley was born there.
Wow.
And finally we got back to Washington, D.C. in what was called the War Department. And Bernard was born. And so we grew up 4 sons, my mother and father. We had a difficult time during the Depression, very difficult, because my father was overtrained for the jobs that were available.
Right.
And for the jobs that he was trained to do, they didn't hire him. So we were quite on the public dole. We were on relief. We were evicted from houses. We had to find places to live. We were separated sometimes because just couldn't make it during that Depression. Right. However, my mother and father were very consistent about our getting an education one day. And then after the Depression broke, we came back to Cleveland because they wanted me to study at East Centennial High School, because that was the only high school that we knew of where you could study architecture for African Americans.
Right.
In Washington, D.C., there were 3 high schools: Armstrong, Cardozo, and Dunbar. And Armstrong was the so-called technical school, where you could study carpenter and shop, but not architecture. Dunbar was a school for college-trained people, but they didn't study architecture. So we came back to Cleveland, which is where my maternal grandmother was, and I entered East Tech. East Tech was very competitive at that time. It was an all-boys school, and it was a tremendous school. We studied French and Latin and geometry and physics, and I studied architecture. When I got to Howard, after my studies at East Tech, I was
You were well prepared.
very well prepared to compete with those who were there. So from Cleveland at East Tech, I got a scholarship to study at Howard, and I went to Howard. It happens that Howard was the school that my father graduated from.
Ah.
And the dean at that time at Howard was a classmate of my father's.
Talk about
So-
2 degrees of separation.
The point is, we didn't have any money, but I had a scholarship, and I worked in the dean's office as a sort of messenger boy. We were there for 2 years, and then the war came along, Second World War, World War II, and I was an ROTC cadet, so I had to go into the military. At that time, in 1943, I went into the Army. And we went to Camp Croft, basic training, but we were scheduled to go to Officer Candidate School, so it took about a year for the barracks to be made available for African American soldiers at Fort Benning, Georgia, because they didn't just mix you there. You had to wait. They had to wait till the barracks was clear. So they could black folks in this barrack. So we got to Fort Benning, Georgia, and I finished Fort Benning, Georgia, and became a second lieutenant. Went to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and was immediately placed in the 92nd Infantry Division called the Buffalo Soldiers. It's a very proud division, very proud, have a great history of the Buffalo Soldiers. We were there, I got there in July of 1944. I was immediately made a battalion intelligence officer called S2. You have to understand they were a segregated army.
Right.
And our officers above the rank of First Lieutenant were all white. And the officers below the rank of First Lieutenant were all black. All the troops were black. So there were no white troops, just white officers.
Tell me a little bit more about that experience, being in a segregated environment.
Oh boy, Fort Benning was something else because it was in Columbus, Georgia. It was in what we call the Deep South. And Fort Benning was like a camp outside of Columbus, Georgia.
Right.
And the Columbus, Georgia, where the people lived, the camp, Fort Benning, was just an army barracks out in nowhere. The point is that they encouraged troops to come into Columbus, Georgia, to enjoy what was called the USO, USO clubs for entertainment. Well, the point was that at that time, blacks and whites could not ride in the same truck. So we went into Fort Benning, Georgia, by waiting for some truck to pick up the black officers, where the white officers were picked up by all sorts of vehicles. So, and I decided I went in one time that was enough because the hassle was not worth
Getting there, right.
And it was very, very ugly because even though we wore the uniform of the United States of America, we're still black.
Right.
Still black. And we had to walk on this side of the street and do the things that you do without the uniform. I was only there 17 weeks, but it was not a comfortable experience. And as a matter of fact, very few people even spoke to me. But that was the way it was.
What was your mental state, and how did you stay grounded?
Well, the thing about it, we expected that.
Okay.
This is nothing new. The fact that we were not liked by white people, the fact that we couldn't do this and do that just because.
Right.
So that, as far as I'm concerned, I wanted one thing, to get out of Fort Benning, Georgia, and become an officer, as did the rest of us. We would endure what hardships there were, because the objective was to get that commission and get the bars on our soldiers, showed us which we did. Got to Fort Huachuca, which was, at least at Fort Huachuca, there was a whole regiment of black soldiers, and we had a good time.
Okay.
But the towns, the cities in Huachuca were off limits for the black troops. We couldn't go there. And the reason we were at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, because there was no state in the Union that wanted a base in which there would be 20,000 black men with guns. So Huachuca was about as far away as you can get. It was about 30 miles from the Mexican border. And then we were at Fort Huachuca. Tucson, Arizona was the nearest city. But we had a great time. We had a great time. We marched and we played cards, and we every now and then some of the troops went across the border.
Right.
For whatever kind of pleasure they got across the border.
Right.
But we had movies on base. It was a very good comradeship being built up among the troops. We went to what was called maneuvers.
What is that?
In Louisiana. That's where we go out and simulate the enemies over there, and we shoot and they shoot, and we simulate a war. Right. With communications and all that, and we were there for about 2 weeks, simulating that we were at war. Came back, and within a short period of time, they said we were leaving Fort Huachuca. But nobody told us where we were going. We had no idea. We did believe, though, that we were going to someplace in the Far East to be in the Quartermaster Corps, because most of the black soldiers were either driving trucks or carrying buckets or digging ditches, and we expected to do the same thing. So no one told us where we were going, except they said, "You're moving out." And we got on what was called a troop train, with all the soldiers on this train. But it was difficult because we had to ride through the cities of the South. And as we rode through the cities of the South, the citizens who were white were very ugly. They just threw stones at us and said ugly things. And if we needed to get out of the train to relieve ourselves, you had to be someplace where nobody could see you because the people were very ugly. This was back in 1940, 42 now. It was de facto segregation as well as de jure segregation. In the South, it was, period. It wasn't any bones about that.
Yes.
You don't
that
belong
was just
there.
The way of life.
So we finally got to Hampton Roads, Virginia, to ship out. And again, but they separated the 92nd Division into what they call the combat team. We were the first group. We were called the 370th Combat Team. The combat team is composed of a regiment of infantry, artillery company, artillery, signal corps, and tank corps. That was a combat team. Move any place, not the whole regiment. So we went over, got on this boat. We had no idea where we were going. But we took 14 days to travel from America to Europe because you didn't go in a straight line. We had to zigzag to avoid the U-boats, from the German U-boats. Took us 14 days to get from here to there on the water. And some of these troops never been on a boat before. I hadn't either. And so, you get seasick, and it was experience. It happens that about 7 days out, they issued some English, Italian language books to the officers. Whoa, that means we're going to
Italy, right.
So we started trying to understand some of the Italian words and get some form of communication. And we finally landed in a place called Naples, city of Naples, Italy.
Yeah.
And we went immediately off the ship to bivouac into what was formerly the hunting ground of the King of Italy. Beautiful estate out there. We pitched these tents all over, waiting to see what was going to happen. We were there in Naples about a week, and we began training. But we still didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't have any ammunition or anything like that. We said we'd going to be quartermaster. Well, about the 25th day of August, so we were out there doing some training. Then they said it's time to leave. So we got on these trucks, and sure enough, we finally said, we're going to the front line. And they finally issued us live ammunition. We never had live ammunition. In the maneuvers, we had live ammunition, but now we got live ammunition and guns. We said, well, this is it, going to battle. It happens that we had to stop in a place called Civitavecchia, Italy, and in contrast, as we were traveling through the villages of Italy, the people were cheering.
Wow.
Through the villages of America, they were spitting at us. We were liberating heroes for the Italians. We were contemptible people for America. It was tremendous contrast. But anyway, we got to Civitavecchia, it's called, and we got off and we're waiting because we had to be inspected by the commanding general, General Mark Clark. And when a new group arrives, you stand in review and you stand out there and you salute and all that. And one of the most magnificent things that ever happened occurred when he was walking down the line inspecting the troops. He noticed that the company commanders were still first lieutenants. And he said to his adjutant, well, these men are commanding companies. Why aren't they captains?
That's right.
Sort of shrugged his shoulders. So he turned to his adjutant and said, give me the bars. So he took these captains' bars and put them on those fellas' shoulders, right down the line. Well, we were ready to go out.
At that point.
Somebody recognized us, somebody respected us, and somebody rewarded us. We were ready to take them apart then. So then after that, we went on up and entered the front line in a place called north of Pisa, on the Arno River, the banks of the Arno River, between Pisa and Florence. And I remember that on the night of August the 31st, 30 days, that's right, we got the order that we were going to have a reconnaissance across the river at midnight. And we just send troops over there to see what's on the other side of the river and come back and report. And we
spread out.
Exploited the coast over there, and nobody was there. They'd left.
Oh.
And so we came back to report. We came back about 1 o'clock in the morning. We were ready to attack at 5 in the morning, which we did. But in the interim period, the Germans had sneaked back in and planted landmines. So we were there, everything was fine, Then we went the next day, the mines started going off, and people were killed.
You had casualties.
Oh yeah, we had casualties. But so I was in the war. I was there, had some narrow escapes, and then I guess the high point of all the story occurs on December the 26th.
What happened December 26th?
1944. December the 25th is Christmas Day.
Right.
And all of the soldiers were getting boxes of chicken and all that from home, and the Germans knew this. And so we were out there having a good time, bawling and having a party. They were moving the big guns in place. There was a big party at Christmas Eve. The next morning, December the 26th, I had to report to battalion headquarters. And an officer has a driver, a Jeep driver. And my driver, he looked a little woozy. He'd had a big time that night. I said to my driver, I said, how you feel? He said, I'm all right. I'm all right. I said, no, you're not all right. I'll tell you what you do. I said, you stay here, and I'll drive the Jeep, and I'll go up. It's this road, and right down there was far down you could see, and up here was a mountain, just one of them side roads.
You were driving on the edge of a mountain.
Exactly right. And all of a sudden, and I knew the Germans were shelling that road, but anyway, I heard it coming. A bomb, a 88 gun hit about right here.
At the front of the...
Tore up the side of the Jeep. Well, I should have been
sitting.
Seat
Wow.
was tore up. Jump was tore up. I was throwing about, I don't know, 20 yards away.
And you got up again and said, I'd beat it again.
Oh, my goodness. And I looked up and I was bleeding all this right side of my uniform, and my left shoe was blown off.
Wow.
So it happens about, I guess, 20 yards up, an outpost of people saw me, and they came out and got me in a Jeep and took me back to Battalion 8 Station.
Yeah. What was going through your mind at that point, having survived that?
What was going through my mind was, my goodness gracious, I got blood coming out of my side here, and my left foot, look at it. And then I got to Battalion 8 Station, and I saw people with no arms.
Oh.
I saw people with no mind, no heads, no feet. So what was going through my mind? Thank the Lord, I'm lucky.
Amen. Yes,
Everything is by comparison. I was trying to get to Summer Colonia, and it happens that the Germans, not only were they in position, they had mounted an offensive.
Oh, wow.
And all of the troops at Summer Colonia killed, just like that. That's where I was headed. Had I not been hit,
you would have made it there,
and I would no longer be here.
here.
But anyway, that was the end of the war for me. It took me back, and that night I had went to the hospital, field hospital. They took the shrapnel out and all. They fixed me back up. But it happens that was a memorable night, that 26th day of December, because 40 years later, about 40 years later, the Italians of Summer Colonia erected a monument to the memory of the Buffalo soldiers who died on December the 26th, 1944.
Wow.
There's a big plaque up there. So that, I tell you, this is the high point. I mean, I was on my way. I was on my way to anyway, I never made it to Summer Colonia.
Wow.
If I made it to Summer Colonia.
Have you been back to see
No, I went back to Italy, but I didn't get to Summer Colonia. Because when I went back to Italy, I went back about, I was about to study in Paris. I took my way, went through Italy, but I have not been back to that area since then. But at that time, they had not erected the plaque. A lot of my friends have been over there, and they said it's just, the Italian people remember that, because we were good folk. We were good people. At any rate, then I spent the rest of the year in Italy because I didn't have enough points to come home. And finally, June 1946, I came back, and I was back in America. I was promoted to first lieutenant at that time. And I wanted to go to school at the Western Reserve because they had a School of Architecture there. And my brothers were at Howard, and I said, gee whiz, why should I go back there? I can go to school here because I got a Bill of Rights, and I can pay for this thing. That's the only way I could do it. Went up to the school there, told the dean of the School of Architecture, gee, thanks. I'm, very excited about coming to join your school, and I'd like to know what do I do to get admitted. And he said, we don't, black people don't study here. We've never had anybody, I doubt we ever will.
Wow.
And he said, plus you would be taking the place of a white boy who could have a job when he gets through, because there's no job for people like you. Well,
Maverick Madison.
So I went home. I started getting mad. I put on my uniform, all my Purple Heart, all the medals there. I went back up there. So let me speak to the dean of admission. I said, let me tell you something. My blood is over there on the soil of Italy, fighting for this country. to make this country free. All I want to do is go to your school. That's all. Huh? Well, he thought about it. He said, well, and he called some people down to look at my work, and it was superior.
Mm-hmm.
And finally he said, well, maybe you can make it. So they gave me examinations every Saturday from the middle of June till September. Anything, physics, chemistry, history, whatever. But I passed. Mm-hmm. I must have passed, but they let me in.
Right.
And then when they let me in, they had to get me out. They didn't want me there because I was a troublemaker.
In what way?
Well, I was a troublemaker in that first thing I did was in physics, the professor usually goes to the drawing board, to the blackboard, and starts doing stuff and says, here's the homework for the day, I'll see you tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And we go home the next day and day and there. Well, this day, for some reason, I decided to do my homework.
Ah.
And I came and I said, as I usually do, and he said, Mr. Madison, would you come to the blackboard? So I went to the blackboard, but I was ready. And I, because that was the flunker router. But he couldn't get me.
Right.
So that day didn't bother me anymore after that. Mm-hmm. So I went to the dean, who didn't want me there in the first place. Mm-hmm. And I said, Dean, and see, this is 1946, and they had me scheduled to finish in 49 if I finished.
Right.
But I've been 2 years in war, 4 years. I got to get out of this place.
Right.
So I went to the dean of the School of Architecture, who studied history of architecture. He taught history of architecture. And I just got to reading a book this thick about the history of Italian architecture. Mm-hmm. He says, Dean, I'm looking forward to your course. I'm so excited about taking your course. I just can't. I'm just beside myself. I can't wait to take your course.
Mm-hmm. Eager student.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madison. I'm very pleased you feel that way. I said, but I want to ask you a question, Dean. I'm confused whether or not the Gates of Paradise of the Cathedral of Florence was designed by Brunelleschi or Bramante.
Oh.
Embarrassed and then pass. No, really. Pass.
Right.
He didn't want me embarrassing him. Yeah. After he told me I couldn't make it anyway.
Exactly.
I went to the professor and instructors. I said, I'm dying to take your course. so eager to take your course. Of course. He says, I wonder if I could audit it, come in and audit it. He said, why not? This is now February. The course started in September. Mm-hmm. So I come to his course every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning and immediately go to sleep. Mm. Immediately go to sleep. Because I'm studying all night to catch up. Mm-hmm. But nobody knows it but me. Yeah. So get to June, I say, well, Dean, Mr. Barber, can I take your examination? I just want to get a feel for it to see how it's like.
Right.
He said, why not? I passed it with a B. Now what they're going to do with I started here, got a B. Those people started here, got C's and D. Yeah. Pass. Wow. Pass. So then, but the coup de grace came when that June of 47. Each year, the graduating class has a picnic out at the Lakeshore Country Club. Hmm. Now, I live in the projects, so I don't know about no country club. Yeah. But they have tennis, and they have golf, and they have dancing. And I was the only one in school, at that school. So I said, well, I'm going to go. Guys, come on, Bob, come and go. So I went out there about 6 o'clock. Hi, guys, chatting. And about 300 people out there. Nobody was eating. So I said, I knew what was going on. So finally, one of the people came, Mr. Madison, they would like to see you in the office. Mm-hmm. Okay. You had to, I knew what was happening. So I got in the office, and there was the dean in there, the chairman of the Department of Architecture, the manager of the country club, and a couple of my friends, my classmates, and me. They're all white,
Right.
So, Mr. Madison, we got a serious problem. We don't serve colored people in the dining room. Oh. It's a country club. He showed me the charter of the, he said, we do not serve colored people. Mm-hmm. So
What's your point?
Y'all's problem, not my problem. I paid my dues. I'm here. Well, gee, what would the members of the country club say? Ain't no problem.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what we're going to do.
Not your problem.
One of my classmates says, well, I tell you what, if Bob doesn't eat, I don't eat. And I got in my pocket the money to pay for them 300 meals in there. So he said, well, maybe you can eat, sir, but you have to leave when it's over.
Huh.
So he, but at that point, they got to get rid of me.
Yeah.
So they just passed me. Next semester, I passed everything. They didn't take no courses. Just, and that's when I graduated from Reserve. But I had to study for 2 years on my own
To catch up.
to pass examinations, which I did. Then from there I went to Harvard, and then I went to Paris, studied architecture. Then I came back, taught at Howard University for a while, and then came back to Cleveland practice.
Wow. And what inspired you to start your practice at that particular point in time?
Because I was at Howard University teaching black students about architecture. I said, what are we doing here? We're teaching these kids to be architects, and there are no jobs for them. Somebody's got to do something.
Right.
I'll do it. That's what I did.
Wow. That is impressive. So from a lesson learned advice perspective, what advice would you give to young emerging leaders out there, or people that are even struggling to start their own business?
Well, I think
or to do something?
the first thing, you have to enjoy doing what you are doing. If it's being architecture or engineering or teaching or playing basketball or whatever, you've really got to enjoy it. And then you've got to commit yourself to being the best. Whatever the best that you can be, and work at it. And then full speed ahead.
Full speed ahead.
In that you can't worry about the obstacles. Just keep going, keep going. That's what I think we did here. Because we had a zillion of obstacles, but keep going. I guess that's what I would say.
What would you say has been the best advice someone has given you?
The best advice someone has given me came from my mother.
Okay.
And my mother said, son, the Lord knows what he is doing. Listen to the Lord and do the best that you can do. And I think that there's no doubt in my mind that advice carried me through the war, carried me to Fort Benning, Fort Huachuca, to Arnold River, crossing through Colonia, through, Lord, I believe that you know what you sent me. Because, I said the other day, I got an award, January the 26th, the Lord must have said there's a purpose for you. Because I should have been gone. At the times I should have been dead as like a cat. I said, but the Lord must believe that I am worthy. And I believe that. And I believe that, you got to work. You got to work hard. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
Nobody give me nothing. But you got to believe that you can do it.
And my final question to you is, what do you perceive as your legacy or impact in society?
I think the impact is he was a person in a field that is not very well known, has made an impact in terms of the hundreds of people I have trained here who would not have been trained here had not be here. You see, architecture is not a field like medicine where you got all the glamour and the law and the President of the United States and Congress and all that, or basketball players. But what we do here, and people don't know this, but long after LeBron James is gone, that building I designed will still be there.
True.
My name will be on the building.
Sure.
leave it on there. I tell the kid, look, kid, he gone. But my name is still on that bill. Mm-hmm. That, I would say, is the impact of this. I've tried very hard to be an example. 'Cause Lord knows we need him. Lord knows we need him.
And that's a great way to end this interview. I certainly want to thank Mr. Madison for joining me today on Making the Case. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
And if you have questions or comments about today's program, please email them to mtc88.7@gmail.com. Making the Case with Dr. Akande is produced with the support of WJCU in University Heights, Ohio. Our theme music is by Alexander May, and our associate producer is Greg Priddy. I'm your host and executive producer, Dr. Yami Akande, inviting you to tune in next week at the same time for another edition of Making the Case.